I just know that I learned from my Shiksha. If you don't start when you say you will start, then you are rewarding those who are late and they keep coming late. That's all. I'm not pushing for starting. You can do that.
Narayana Switcham Devam Devam Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraya Diri Ramayane Shaiva Purane Bharate Tata Adavante Chamadye Chahari Saiva Turgiyate Mukam Karodi Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yet Kripa Tamaham Vande Shigurum Dinataranam So I have a question for, since we have a quorum, or I'm being a little sarcastic here about that. Would everybody like to, I really like my Guru Maharaj's Mangalacharna, which he told me to recite every time before Bhagavatam, but it's a little long, takes more than 5 minutes. We could just do what I just did now, or we could continue with the Mangalacharna. What do we say? It doesn't bother me either way.
I feel it appropriate. The only concern is time-wise, but it seems that devotees are not so much concerned about time. me
yes,
not excluded. I was also late.
I'm also so much used to hear it, and yes, it's about Bhagavatam mostly also, and spiritual master.
We certainly don't have to spend a lot of time. Let's just try it today, and we just see. I don't mean to torture everybody. That's all. Paramananda He Madhava Padunga Luchi Makaranda Se Makaranda Panakori Anande Bolo Hari Hari Harinka Name Vandhavela Parikorive Chakadolan Se Chakadolanka Paraye Manamo Rahu Nirantare Manamo Nirantare Rahu Ha Krishna Boli Jiva Jao Ha Krishna Boli Jao Jiva Moteu Dada Radha Dava Moteu Dada Radha Dava Moteu Dada Radha Dava. So I'm not reading translations, we're just putting the Sanskrit there, and if somebody's really talented, you can look at the verse in Sanskrit at the same time. Translation in Sanskrit. Dharma projita kaita vota paramo nimatsuranam satam vedyam vastavamatta vastu shivadam tapatrayam mudranam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kimba Parayishvara Sadhyo Hridyavarudyate Chakriti Shushu Shubhistakshanat Nigamako Pataro Galitam Phalam Shukamukara Mitra Gavasamyutam Pivata Bhagavatam Asamalayam Mohoro Rasika Vibhavuka Anarto Pasamam Sakshat Bhakti Yogam Naboksaje Lokasya Janato Vidvams Chakre Sadbata Samhitam Yashambhai Shriyamanayam Krishna Padamapurushe Bhakti Padyate Pumsa Shoka Moha Bhayapaha Srimad Bhagavatam Paramam Yad Vaishnavanam Priyam Yasmin Paramaham Samekam Amalam Jnanam Param Giyate Tatra Gyana Vairagya Bhakti Sahitam Naiskaryam Aviskritam Tachchimvan Supatim Vicharna Prabhu Bhakti Vimuchin Naraha Artoyam Brahma Sutranam Bharatata Vinirnayaha Kayatri Bhasharupo Sovedata Paribrimitaha Sarva Vedeti Hasanam Sadam Sadam Samudritam Sarva Vedanta Sadam Hi Srimad Bhagavatam Ishyate Tadrasam Rita Chiptasyanam Yatra Sarvachi Kuchit Krishna Bhakti Rasa Swaru Shri Bhagavatam Tate Veda Shastra Hoite Paramamaha Chari Veda Upanishade Jata Kichu Hare Tara Arta Lanavyasa Korila Sanchaya Jai Sutre Jai Ru Vishaya Vachana Bhagavate Seru Shlokeni Bandana Jivira Nishtada Lagi Sutra Koilo Vyasa Mayavadi Bashishunile Hoya Sarvana Sam Jama Bhagavata Pada Vaishnavi Vaishnave Ekanda Shakala Chaitanya Charane Bhagavata Jainamane Sejavana Sharma Tada Shasta Akshijame Jame Prabhu Jam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, here's my situation. We've been really super crazy busy and working on the Bindu, which I just finished a few minutes ago sending it off to Muktajiv. And I did have a few minutes to look at Maharaj's lecture. And because, I don't know, my brain works really well when I look at things. Hearing, I like to do in person. Recordings, it's not really my thing so much, but I really love what Siddha Hari Prabhu did. This transcription is really excellent. So anyway, I heard part of Maharaj's lecture. I went through some of it, and I have some reflections on it. And then we can go through these questions a little bit later and see if there's any discussion on that. First of all, Maharaj was speaking on the 13th chapter, the 12th canto, which is speaks about the glories of the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's a common thing in a lot of Puranas. At the end of the book, it's also done in Padma Purana and Brihanardiya Purana and Harivamsa and different literatures. They have a whole section which will tell you, okay, now you read through the whole thing and here's what you get. This is what prize you get. And it glorifies the literature itself. So Maharaj was speaking on text number 19, which I'm going to try to kind of go a little bit of an overview of what Maharaj is saying. I'm not going to pick this verse apart. He did an amazing job. It was an amazing talk by Maharaj. But you can look at this verse and maybe it'll bring it back to your mind. And this is the Bhagavatam. That it's this spotless Purana. It's Vimalam, which means that it's this uncontaminated, it's spotless Purana. And this Purana, the nature of it is that it's been handed down. Brahma spoke it to Narada, who spoke it to Vyasadeva, Vyasadeva spoke it to Shukadeva, and Shukadeva spoke it to Maharaj Parikshit. And the purport, the BBT purport, they bring that out a little bit more. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur his commentary says a few similar things. I'm not going to go there. And Maharaj gives his Mangala Charana. Let's read a few things from Maharaj here, from his transcript. Krishna Kun, do you want to read? Can you see?
Sure.
In fact,
it is Krishna himself who speaks Srimad Bhagavatam. This is an amazing, mind-blowing statement. It is said specifically that in the beginning, Krishna himself revealed Srimad Bhagavatam to Lord Brahma, but it didn't stop there. When Krishna himself revealed Srimad Bhagavatam in the form of Lord Brahma to Narada Muni, it's not Brahma who was explaining Srimad Bhagavatam to Narada Muni, it was Krishna himself speaking through Lord Brahma. And then Narada Muni came to Srila Vyasadeva, and Narada Muni gave instructions to Vyasadeva in regard to Srimad Bhagavatam, and Sutta Goswami says that at that moment, when Narada Muni was speaking Srimad Bhagavatam, or explaining what Srila Vyasadeva is supposed to write as his highest contribution to the world of spiritual literature, it was Krishna himself who was speaking through Narada Muni. And then when Srila Vyasadeva received this knowledge from Krishna himself in the form of Narada, and in his turn was trying or was explaining Srimad Bhagavatam, teaching Srimad Bhagavatam to his son Shukadeva Goswami, it was not Vyasadeva, it was Krishna himself who was speaking through Vyasadeva. And when Shukadeva...
Yeah. So then he goes on and explains how Krishna was speaking through Shukadeva Goswami to Maharaj Parikshit, Sutta Goswami, Krishna was speaking through Sutta Goswami to the sages of Naimisharanya. And then he said, suddenly Srila Prabhupada. You know, it was so beautiful. When Prabhupada came to America, it was not Prabhupada who was speaking Srimad Bhagavatam, but it was Krishna inside of Srila Prabhupada who was explaining Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is the system. And Maharaj mentions a little bit about Prabhupada's marking Bhagavad Dharma, where he ponders how people will hear this, because Prabhupada's thinking in a humble way that I can't do this myself, but Krishna's doing this through me. So this is one of the first points that Maharaj made about the Bhagavatam and the position of the Bhagavatam. I was so thrilled to hear these things. Maharaj is, I can tell you, one of the most controversial topics my Guru Maharaj ever spoke about was the difference between hearing and reading, and the absolute necessity to hear from a person. And that was controversial even over just recently, a few days ago, just yesterday and today, I've been having a disagreement with one of my godbrothers who's advocating that I can just read the book and I don't need a guru, and the book is right there. And I told him, I said, well, do you think you can read a book and understand Albert Einstein or understand Leonardo da Vinci? He said, no, Bhagavatam is not like that. Bhagavatam is accessible for everyone. Also, then the Bhagavatam is different from Krishna, because Krishna says, Bhakti Mama Bhajanati Yavaняschasmi Tattvatam. So even my godbrother, and I don't want to get into all of his arguments, but even my own godbrother, who's a very learned godbrother, couldn't understand this. And I've seen, I don't even want to begin to discuss, we could have a whole session just talking about the controversy that exploded over my Guru Maharaj saying these things, because devotees are used to the fact saying that Srila Prabhupada is present in his books, and that's an absolute thing. So many devotees didn't get it. I remember I had some association with Srila Narayan Maharaj. And after my Guru Maharaj had left, there was a lot of Prabhupada disciples and senior devotees that went to Narayan Maharaj. And I remember there was a controversy about this subject there. And some of them also, they couldn't understand, because they've heard this so many times that I'm present in my books. And the difficulty is, it's a fact. Difficulty always is in Krishna consciousness when there's a subtle subject. And sometimes we take one side of it and say it's like this, but it's not always, it's a chincha beta beta. There's different sides to the same thing, which can be stressed. So my Guru Maharaj was stressing a particular side for a reason, because he didn't like seeing the Ridviks, etc., and devotees losing their faith, and he understood that to really understand Srimad Bhagavatam, you need to go through a person. So after all these years, and hearing from so many of my godbrothers, some of them very learned, I can tell you honestly, the one person that I've heard from who I really felt like really excited, I wanted to jump up and start shouting, "You've got it, you got it," and that's Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj. I was just completely astonished at how I even I don't know, he didn't hear directly from Guru Maharaj, but he really got this subject, and it makes me so delighted. To me, it really says something about his spiritual position. Like this is something that he already just understood before, because I don't think it was anything that he really heard from anybody. I don't know anybody other than my Guru Maharaj who stresses this. Maybe he heard some recordings of my Guru Maharaj, but that's not the same. And Maharaj himself also discusses that. So I was really fired up when in the very beginning of his discussions overview of Srimad Bhagavatam, he's speaking, he doesn't directly speak about the Bhakta Bhagavat, he doesn't use that phrase, but that's what he's speaking about, the Bhakta Bhagavat and the Grantha Bhagavat. And how to understand the book Bhagavat, we have to take shelter of the Bhakta Bhagavat. And what does that mean? As Maharaj says in such a beautiful way, that it was not Lord Brahma who spoke to Vyasadeva. It was Krishna himself inside the body of him. It was not, spoke to Narad Muni. It wasn't Narad Muni who spoke to Lord Brahman, and Narad Muni spoke to Vyasadeva, but it was Krishna himself speaking through. So I wanted to share with you just real briefly a little chart that I made some years ago on this subject matter. This is a very short article that I wrote. Let me just bring the article up some years ago, but I think it's really good for today. How the Bhagavatam is manifested in different forms at different times. And here's a little excerpt from Prabhupada's purport to Bhagavatam 3, 8, and 9. And Prabhupada explains there that the Bhagavatam existed even before the time of Vyasadeva. As a great speaker of the Puranas, Parasara first of all spoke on the Srimad Bhagavat Purana because it is a foremost of all Puranas. Maitreya Muni desired to narrate the same Bhagavatam he'd heard from Parasara, and Vidura was qualified to hear it because of his faithfulness and his following instructions received from superiors. So Srimad Bhagavatam was being narrated from time immemorial by the disciplic succession, even before the time of Vyasadeva. Okay, so then let's look at Bhagavatam 178. Sutta Goswami is speaking. He says, Sa samhitam bhagavatim kritvanam kramya chatmajam sukam adhyapayam asa nibriti niratam muni. That Vyasadeva, he compiled the Bhagavatam, he revised it, and then he taught it to his son, Shukadeva Goswami. And Vishwanath comments on this verse, Ataschadaiva Purva Nimittasyaiva Sri Bhagavatasyanu Pramanam. That he's commenting on Anukramya. Anukramya means that it's coming in sequence. Kritvanukramya means that he revised it. So he says, and in this word, Anukramya means that the Bhagavatam already existed, and Srila Vyasadeva compiled a new edition of it. So let's just go through a few pramanas about this. This is from Chaitanya Bhagavat. Vrindavan Das Thakur describes the Bhagavatam, Jaina Rupa Matsya Karma Adi Avatar, Avirbhav Tirobhava Apanei Hoy. The same way that Krishna has so many different avatars, Matsya Karma Adi Avatar, begin with Matsya and Karma, etc. And then Avirbhav Tirobhava, they appear, and then they disappear transcendently. In the same way, Srimad Bhagavatam appears and disappears on its own accord, because the Bhagavatam is Krishna. Vrindavan Thakur says, Prema Moyi Bhagavata, Krishna Shriyanga, that the Bhagavatam is full of Krishna Prema. It's part of Krishna himself. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta has commented on this The Srimad Bhagavatam is an eternal literature. Even when it's lost in the course of time, by the Lord's mercy, it again appears in the tongue and from the writing of Vyasa. So then we compiled a list of things which occasions we found the Bhagavatam being spoken. And this is by no means an exhaustive list. There's many, many others. So the Skanda Purana mentions that originally the Bhagavatam was spoken by Krishna to Vishnu. Vishnu became a disciple of Krishna. Then on another occasion, Skanda Purana says that this is from the Bhagavad Mahatmya section of the Skanda Purana. Vishnu is speaking to Lakshmi Devi. And then sometimes, ladies here will be happy to know this, Lakshmi Devi, she gives the Bhagavatam class. And for 2 months while Vishnu listens. And then again, Narayan speaks to Shiva. Narayan speaks to Brahma. That's mentioned in the 3rd canto of the Bhagavatam and also in the chapter Shloki verses, how Lord Narayan speaks of Bhagavatam to Lord Brahma. Then the 2nd canto speaks about how Brahma spoke it to Narad Muni. That's in the 7th chapter. The 9th chapter speaks about how Narada spoke it to Vyasa. Then the 1st canto of the Bhagavatam, looking back, says how the Bhagavatam was compiled by Vyasa. And in the 7th chapter of the 1st canto and the 1st chapter of the 2nd, it said how Vyasa spoke it to Shukadev. Skanda Purana says that Uddhava spoke it to the queens of Dwarka, not very far away from where Anapayani Radha is staying. And Parashara Muni, according to the 3rd canto of the Bhagavatam, spoke it to Maitreya. Maitreya spoke it to Dura. Shiva spoke it to Parvati. There's a tradition like that in Bhubaneswar and Amarnath. Shukadeva Goswami spoke it to Maharaj Parikshit. Sutta Goswami spoke it to the sages of Naimisha. Parikshit spoke it to Uttara. That's in Brihad Bhagavatamrita. And that's a completely different Bhagavatam. Brihad Bhagavatam. Sankhyayanna spoke it to Parasara Muni. And Brihaspati, it's also mentioned in Skanda Purana. Brihaspati spoke it to Uddhava. Lord Sankarshan spoke it to the 4 Kumaras. The 4 Kumaras spoke it to Sankhyayanna Muni. So this is a fascinating thing to me. It was a bit of a revelation to kind of expand my personal understanding of what Maharaj is saying, that the Bhagavatam is not just, to use one of my favorite words I learned years ago, not just a lexical, graphical text, not just a dictionary thing, but it's a living, breathing person. And just like every living, breathing person manifests different forms and different moods. Sometimes if you wake somebody up too early in the morning, especially non-devotees are used to having coffee, then you see a kind of monster there or something. Or sometimes they become lusty, sometimes they become sweet. Different people manifest in so many different ways. Similarly, Srimad Bhagavatam also manifests in different ways. So what is the Srimad Bhagavatam? Well, for us, first of all and foremost, Srimad Bhagavatam is that literature which Srila Prabhupada gave us. There's 12 cantos spoken by Sukadeva Goswami and Sutta Goswami, compiled by Vyasadeva. That is Srimad Bhagavatam. But we hear in Brihad Bhagavatamrita that in the heavenly planets there's 100,000 verses. In the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, the message which is given by Parikshit to Uttara is different. To give you an example of this, in Odia painting, in Patachitra art, they have different types of paintings. You made it like one section, one type of paint is called Kanchi Vijay. And it's all about the king going to South India and Lord Jagannath protecting him. And it's a whole genre of painting. And then there's other genres of Ganesh. There's different, but one particular genre of painting is called Ras Leela. But Ras Leela is not just pictures of Ras Leela. Ras Leela painting within Patachitra art means any painting of Radha and Krishna together. They consider that to be Ras Leela. So my personal understanding, and if somebody wants to speak with Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj more about this in question, I would be delighted. It's a very exciting thing to me. My personal understanding is that the Bhagavatam manifests in different forms at different times. I'm quite sure of that. And the proof is the Bhagavatam itself. In chapter Shloki, was just 4 verses. That was the whole Bhagavatam that was spoken by Lord Vishnu to Lord Brahma. That was the entire Bhagavatam. So the Bhagavatam is a spirit, it is a particular type of katha, like a genre, just like Raslila paintings are a particular type of thing. So these are different manifestations of the Bhagavatam, because the Bhagavatam means, what is the echo that's going on? Bhagavatam means when Krishna is entered into the heart of that devotee and inspires that devotee. That would be one simple definition I would give based on what Maharaj was just saying. Krishna enters in the heart of that devotee. But it's not just when Krishna enters into the heart, there has to be a qualified speaker and a qualified listener. If there's no qualified listener, then it doesn't happen. The transmission doesn't take place. But Yasham Vaisha Yamanayam Krishna Padamapurashe, that when someone's very eager, they just simply have the desire to understand Srimad Bhagavatam. My Guru Maharaj used to comment, based on Vishwanath's commentary, that just that desire alone can give someone perfection. Krishna will manifest just when someone has that desire. So this is Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is not just a book. It is a book, and this was my godbrother's problem. He really loves literature. He loves to read, and it's not the kind of thing you want to quarrel about, because you want to encourage him to read Srimad Bhagavatam. But he's unhappy because some devotees, he feels, have done some politics and tried to say, you can't just read the book, you have to hear from the person. And again, with any subtle subject, there's something to be said on both sides. So anyway, Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj begins his talk, understanding this overview of Srimad Bhagavatam, by speaking this point about how Krishna is inside of different devotees, and Krishna is a personality who's speaking it. And he comments how this verse from the 13th chapter, which he's reading, says Satyam Param Dhimahi. And Maharaj explains that the word Dhimahi means to meditate on something. We have the word Dhimahi in our Gayatri mantra. And he explains that Dhimahi means that the person who meditates on it contains the absolute truth within his intelligence. So how is that possible? That's an inconceivable thing. And then Maharaj goes on in a very beautiful way, in a very fundamental way, which gave me a lot of respect and appreciation for his presentation. He spoke about, he begins to speak from Tattva Sundarbha. And I was very happy with that, because if we want to understand Srimad Bhagavatam, the foundation for understanding that in our line is Tattva Sundarbha. Is all the Sundarbhas. The Sundarbhas are all expansions in the Bhagavatam, but they begin with Tattva Sundarbha. And Tattva Sundarbha explains how to approach it. So, thank you, Lila Purushottam, for this regular comment. So let me just share with you, I put together, I looked this up. This is from the Anucheta 10 of Tattva Sundarbha. I looked up what Maharaj was saying, and I got to tell you guys that Siddha Hari Prabhu's software is really awesome. I was just so shocked. It practically got all the Sanskrit right. It didn't give the diacritics, which I've added here. So Maharaj began speaking about how there's 4 fundamental characteristics of the absolute truth that make it unknowable. And this is a very, very important subject matter. So if the absolute truth is knowable for everybody, then what is the problem? Or if you say that it's not knowable, it's unknowable, then what makes it unknowable? So he gives these 4 things: sarvatita, sarvashraya, sarvachincha, and sarvaschaja swabhav. And swabhav word can go with all 4 of these. So sarvatita means that it's transcendental. We have a friend, a few of us in Mayapur, Titi Guna Mataji. Atita means something which is beyond the reach of our senses. Atita means the beyond. Sarva Atita means it's beyond everything. So then it's also Sarva Ashraya, that which is really hard to understand. Sarva Atita means it is beyond everything, but Sarva Ashraya means it's within everything. So how can something be beyond everything and at the same time be within everything? It's Sarva Ashraya. Ashraya means it's a shelter, the foundation. It's the background of everything it contains within itself. So Sarva Atita, Sarva Ashraya. And these phrases come together in Jiva Goswami's Tattva Sandarbha. And then the third is that it's Sarva Chintya. Achintya means that it's inconceivable. Sarva Chintya means it's inconceivable everywhere at all times. Because Maharaj explains it has so many contradictions at the same time that by logic, we can't understand it. And the fourth way, the fourth characteristic of the supreme truth, which makes it completely unknowable, is that it's Sarvascharja Swabhav. Ascharja means astonishing. Maharaj translates as amazing, absolutely mind-blowing. That's how Bhakti began. Maharaj translates it. I like very much. Sarvascharja Swabhav. Swabhav means the nature. It's Sarvachintya Swabhav. It's Sarvashra Swabhav. It's Sarvatita Swabhav. And it's Sarvascharja Swabhav. This is the nature, four natures of this absolute truth. If we understand these four natures, then we begin to understand something about the difficulty of approaching Srimad Bhagavatam. Jai Gaura asking me if I can share this document that I'm going through right now. My notes. Which document are you talking about?
That one in particular, yeah, those notes about the four different types.
Sure. Why don't I just go ahead and I'll paste it right now in our WhatsApp chat for the Bhagavatam group, and that's a totally legal, bona fide, good question to jump in with. So I just pasted it in. And I could give also the Tattva Sandarbha, but Maharaj is giving us an essential understanding of everything. And I'm trying to just fly through and just help us understand a little bit of what Maharaj is saying. So then Maharaj goes on speaking about Jiva Goswami and how the subject matter that we're dealing with is a Tato Brahma Jignasa, that we're trying to understand Brahman. But this is very, very difficult. And this is one of the first things that Maharaj tackles. And it's a really, really fundamental and important thing to tackle, because if I come, just like in the conversation I was having with my godbrother, and I say so many things about the Bhagavatam, he'll say, no, but the Bhagavatam is meant to be read. How dare you say that? And to me, that's kind of a Hindu understanding. Hindu meaning I respect it as coming from India and something from our tradition, but it's not really deeply versed within a tradition itself. So Maharaj is explaining that what is the problem? If we don't understand the problem with understanding Srimad Bhagavatam, how are we going to do it? So he goes on to explain, again, this is from Tattva Sandarbha, from Anucheta 10, that the absolute truth, the only way to understand the absolute truth, the Satata Brahma Jignasa Maharaj begins speaking about, which is the subject matter of Vedanta Sutra, is aprakat vachana. Aprakat vachana means a sound vibration which has nothing to do with prakrit. Prakrit means material nature, something which is aprakrit, means something which is completely beyond this world. So this is aprakrit vachana. It's a sound vibration which has nothing to do with this dull matter. In other words, it's totally transcendental. Wow. what an amazing thing. Huh? And he goes on to explain how this is the essence of the Tattva Sandarbha of Jiva Goswami, where to understand the Srimad Bhagavatam, We're doing a sadhana every day to read it and understand it. So this revelation takes place in our heart. Now, I'd like to share with you some things from Srila Prabhupada. This is from our Pariprashna appendixes, which, by the way, I took help from Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj for this. We wrote an article in there called From the Lips, and I approached Hariparsha Prabhu, Prem Prayojan, and Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj, and took help from the three of them. I wrote the article and I gave it to them. I said, do you guys have any other thoughts? And they had some different things to share. Anyway, in those appendixes, we also included some statements from Srila Prabhupada, like this here. So, Krishna, do you want to read again? Can you see it?
Yes.
The Puranas.
The Puranas are also parts of the Vedas, and histories like the Mahabharata or Ramayana are also parts of the Vedas. The Acharya or the Goswami must be well acquainted with all these literatures. To hear and explain them is more important than reading them. One can assimilate the knowledge of the revealed scriptures only by hearing and explaining. Hearing is called Shravana and explaining is called Kirtana. The two processes of Shravana and Kirtana are of primary importance to progressive spiritual life. Only one who has properly grasped the transcendental knowledge from the right source by submissive hearing can properly explain the subject.
Jaigor, you want to read the next sentence?
Yes. We have to hear not from a telephone, but from an authorized person, for it is he who has real knowledge.
That includes Zoom. Actually, the point here is not Zoom. Zoom is we're hearing from persons and we're having a personal exchange. And as Srila Prabhupada says, the last sentence that Krishna Kun just read, only one who has properly grasped the transcendental knowledge from the right source by submissive hearing can properly explain the subject. So that submissive hearing is so very, very important. Prabhupada says it's primarily important to progressive spiritual life. Progressive spiritual life. I find that little comment interesting also. In other words, you may have spiritual life. I would again call it something like the Hindus. You're reading Srimad Bhagavatam, you have Bhagavad Saptaha, and then that's good. And we respect that, but it's not progressive in the sense that it's not going toward Krishna prema. I pasted in a few other things. I could, if devotees like, I could. Here's a really good one. Jaigor, why don't you read this one before engaging oneself in devotional service?
Sure. Before engaging yourself in devotional service to the Lord, you must first of all worship Acharya, Acharyopasanam. One cannot become a devotee personally. Just like some rascals say, what is the use of accepting Guru? Of course, they have got a very bad experience. It is not like that. If I like, I can go to a Guru. If I don't like, I can learn the books at home and learn everything. No, that is not possible. Practically, just like if you purchase a medical book and study at home, and if you begin to practice, you will be called a quack. You will not be recognized by the government. You will not get the practitioner's registration. You will not. Unless you have passed through the medical college, your medical examination, you will not be accepted, even if you say, I have read all the books. Similarly, if you simply think that I have read, as we see generally, oh, I have read Bhagavad Gita 100 times, but you ask him what is Krishna, he cannot say, because he has not approached the Acharya. This is the difficulty. He might have read Bhagavad Gita 1,000 times, but he will not understand a single word because he has not approached.
So, the lectures Prabhupada gave in Bombay in 1973. I always, every time I hear this, it really strikes me. Let me highlight this. Prabhupada says, just like some rascals say, what is the use of accepting Guru? Of course, they've got very bad experience. I always said, my God, this is 1973. Now it's 2023. And there's so many people who say, what is the use of accepting Guru? And why do they say that? because they had a very bad experience. And Prabhupada really just hit it on the head in such a beautiful way back then. And this is one of the reasons why my Guru Maharaj stressed what he did, and perhaps also Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj. And that's an important point to me. When I hear from someone, and I like to hear from a person, I don't like to just hear from a recording, because I want to try to understand their motivation. I want to try to understand their mood. Sometimes you have a manager, a temple president or someone, and they have an idea that to make things work properly, everybody has to march in a certain way, and that's okay. That's their right. The Krishna's given them that position and that. But I want to know if that's the purpose in what they're saying, or their purpose in saying it is because they want to get money out of you. Their purpose in speaking is that they want to defeat you, or they want to impress you. They're looking for a girlfriend. They want to impress some women. What is their purpose in speaking? And to understand that purpose, you really need to be in a physical proximity with that person for some time. You can't just understand just at a glance. So personally, I don't listen to a lot of recordings. I like to be with, but I very much like to hear live class. And even if it's not, as my Guru Maharaj might say, the Srup Shakti Krishna Pushta Parikar Nitya Siddha Mahabhagavat Paramahansa devotee who's speaking, maybe it's just some housewife or Guru Kuli or something. But I like hearing their realizations. I like hearing some practical Bhagavatam, unless it's really a bad talk. Sometimes I was also there. But in general, I like to hear from the person for this reason. Leela Purushottam is commenting, one can assimilate the knowledge from scriptures by hearing and explaining. That's interesting. Yeah, those two things are required. And we often hear that if you hear but you don't explain, then you may lose what you've gotten. So I wanted to try to finish in about 10 minutes, and now I'm feeling a little pressurized.
So we go then to 4:30.
Well, we want to give everybody a chance to talk some too. Let me just go a little bit longer here. We'll see. So I want to share with you some things that I got from Fakir Mohan Prabhu some years ago. 3 divisions of seeing: Drishyaman, Shabda, or Shutekshikapata, and Aprakrit. Same word Maharaj is using. So Drishyaman means a mundane kind of vision. You go to Vrindavan and you hold your nose. So, oh my God, there's some dead rat or something in the sewer there, and it stinks so bad, and nobody's doing anything about it. I wish I was back in Budapest. Or whatever. Bad smells are not there. That's Drishyaman darshan. You're just seeing something external. Pashan apina pashyati. The Bhagavatams, you're seeing, it says you're seeing, but you're not actually seeing. And those people, they think that they're the drashta, they're the seer, but that's not their position. Their position is drishta, seeing. The next, better than that, is shabda, or shutekshitapata, to take a phrase from the 3rd canto of the Bhagavatam. The path of hearing, literally shutekshitapata means, ikshita means to see, shuta means to hear, pata means the path. The path of seeing through the ears. And that's shabda. And we have that vision, but it's only theoretical. It's not realized. And then there's aprakrit. Aprakrit means divine vision, where someone speaks to the deity speaks back with you. You can see the swarup of your guru. You can directly see Krishna's pastimes. Similarly, there's 4 divisions of hearing. And this is based on some commentary on the Upanishads and also on Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur's saying. So Vaikari, Madhyama, Pashyanti, and Pran. Vaikari means sound in general. Vaikari, I think this word we have, vicarious in English, comes from the word Vaikari, because it means practically, vicarious means that you're associating with somebody through this other thing. So this is a sensory stage of Vedic sound. And Vishwanath says, I heard this from fucking Rambabu, it's Nasika Vayu. It's just air coming out of the speaker's nose. Nasika Vayu. In other words, it's not realized. They're just repeating it. And we don't like hearing that. I had somebody I was discussing something about the Bhagavatam recently on Facebook. And I quoted some things from Chaitanya Bhagavat. And the person said, don't just throw quotes at me. What is your realization? I didn't continue the discussion because my realization is that I don't have any realization. And my realization is I follow my Gurudev. My Gurudev said I should quote Pramana. But I understand this person because there's so many devotees, and hopefully not myself, but sometimes we just want to throw something at someone. And we don't like that. That's nasika value. It's just like being sneezed on. It has about as much value, someone quoting a verse to you as sneezing on you. It's just some air from the speaker's nose. Better than that is madhyama, where we begin to contemplate on it. And we often mention Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur's commentaries in the 12th chapter of the Gita, where he speaks about abhyasa, manana, and smarana. Abhyasa yoga yuktena, we should practice. That's vaikari. It's just sensory. But then we come to the platform of manana, where we begin to contemplate it. It begins to enter into the heart. And the devotee, this is the madhyama stage of hearing, he begins to deeply contemplate what is the Gurudev said. And then we come to the platform of pashanti, where nam and nami become one. It becomes realized. But still, it's realized in the mental phase. And then it finally comes eventually to prana, where we enter directly into the pastimes of Krishna. So, let me share these 4 divisions of hearing and 3 divisions of seeing. Okay, so then let's look a little more at Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj's lecture. I just picked up some different things that I thought were really important and to read from. Lila Purushottam, can you read?
Yes. We know that different schools of Vaishnava philosophy, they make prominent different books. Not every school of Vaishnava philosophy, personalistic philosophy, treats all the books equal. There are some preferences, like in Ramanuja Sampradaya, the emphasis is on studying Vedanta Sutra, and of course on studying Upanishads, and on studying Ramayana, and of course Divya Prabandha, the revelation of Vedas, which was done by Alvars. But Ramayana is a very essential part of their sadhana because Upanishads are very difficult to understand. They're written in a very complicated language, not in a very straightforward manner. To study Vedanta Sutra, to study Vedanta Sutra, you really have to be a philosopher, and you have to have a very dry heart, because only dry heart can be satisfied with studying all these of the philosophy of Upanishads.
Let's stop there for a second.
Yeah.
This is a very interesting thing too. Amongst all of us, I'll use myself as an example, a shameless example. I like cartoons. I really like Calvin and Hobbes. I like the other side. There's so many different Far Side. There's so many different cartoons that I like. I grew up with cartoons as a philosophical expression, philosophical and social expression. I was kind of trained like that. And I like that, and a lot of people do like that. A lot of devotees, for them, reading the Bhagavatam is a little bit of a chore. They can read Krishna book, but if you ask them, I've seen devotees, you ask them to give class on the 6th chapter, 5th or 6th chapters of the 2nd canto of the Bhagavatam, Purusha Shukta explained. On the 3rd canto of the Bhagavatam, the time according to the atom, like all the blood drains from the face. I remember one devotee sat down in Vrindavan, Krishna Balar Mandir, and it was a verse on time according to the atom. He read the verse, read the purport, and then he said, so I'm going to tell some Prabhupada stories. And I really can't blame him, because he likes to hear Prabhupada stories. And that's what so many of us like. So the point Maharaj basically is making here is that different groups of people, this is different birds, different types of birds flock together, different types of persons come together, and some of them they'd like to study Vedanta Sutra, but more in the Ramanuja Sampradaya, they generally like to study the Ramayana or Divya Prabandha, which is also in a simpler kind of language. It was given by the Alwars. But they understand that the Upanishads and Vedanta Sutra is the basic format. But most people have no time for that. I remember years ago, I have a good friend who studied many different commentaries on Vedanta Sutra. And he was one of my teachers, Gorkeshwar Prabhu. And he's really into Vedanta Sutra. When we come together, he'd say, so let's discuss. What do you want to talk about? And I said, let's talk about bhakti. And he said, oh, that's too complicated. let's talk about Vedanta Sutra. Because he has a brilliant mind, and he can really. But I'm sorry, as Maharaj said, and I'm not trying to say it about my friend, but someone has a very dry heart. They're interested in all this kind of philosophy. Most people, they like Ramayana, or as Maharaj goes on to say here, the Madhva Sampradaya, we see the Mahabharata, and the Tattvaya Nirnaya of Madhvacharya. He's explained the hidden meaning of Mahabharata, so we can understand that. And of course, according to their tradition, he's an incarnation of Bhim, Vayu, Hanuman, so he can understand that Mahabharata himself. And they stress Bhagavad Gita. And now Maharaj begins to speak a little bit about Bhagavad Gita and how Prabhupada stressed the Gita. But he makes such a wonderful point. When I heard this from Maharaj, I jumped up and I started clapping and putting my hands up in the air. It's such a subtle thing, and it's so difficult for devotees to understand. Bhaktivedanta Maharaj said, the original fathers, our founding fathers of our Sampradaya, spoke very little about Bhagavad Gita. Okay, now before you want to nail Bhaktivedanta Maharaj to the cross, he explains a little bit. They quoted some verses from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. There was, but before Vishwanath, there was no commentary on Gita. Excuse me. Before Vishwanath, there's no commentary on the Gita. And then Baladev wrote his Gita Bhushan, and Prabhupada translated the Gita Bhushan and gave his Bhagavad Gita as it is. But the emphasis, let's highlight this, the emphasis of Gaudiya Sampradaya is on something else. It's on rasa, it's on bhakti, whereas Bhagavad Gita gives hints to indicate bhakti, but does not openly glorify bhakti as the only way. Bhaktivedanta Maharaj Ki Jai. Some of my friends who've heard from different acharyas in Gaudiya Math make the same point. But in ISKCON, we should give everybody a little bit of a break. In ISKCON, we don't know so much about bhakti. We know about ISKCON. That's what we've grown up with. We've grown up with the institution. We haven't really grown up so much with bhakti. And this is, again, a subtle subject. As somebody says, somebody may hear this from Bhaktivedanta Maharaj and take this out of context and then try to attack him. Well, Maharaj is saying we don't need Bhagavad Gita, we don't stress Bhagavad Gita, we want rasa. But just see, Prabhupada gave us Bhagavad Gita. And not only that, in their commentaries, our acharyas quote Bhagavad Gita so much. And so then their conclusion is that they'll say Bhaktivedanta Maharaj is nonsense or something. They're nonsense. They don't understand because it's a subtle subject matter. Yes, our acharyas quote Bhagavad Gita. Yes, Bhagavad Gita is an extremely important book. But our Gaudiya Vaishnava acharyas focused on Srimad Bhagavatam and not so much on Bhagavad Gita. Now, I'd like to share with you, he goes on and speaks about how the Ramanandi Sampradaya around Govardhan Hill, I remember, I don't remember what it was for, though. I remember sitting somewhere, I must have been with some devotee or something, we were on Purkama. That's what it was. We went to some ashram, some sadhus near Govardhan, and they were reciting Ram Treat Manas. I was watching. Somebody was also making hashish. That was their two favorite things, Ram Treat Manas and hashish. So that really stuck in my mind. There's a common thing around there. So the Bhagavatam is a nourishment for Gaudiyas. And Maharaj explains how different devotees, they have some inclination toward Ram Treat Manas or toward Valmiki Ramayana or toward the cartoons like me. And that's the thing which nourishes their realization. But this Bhagavatam is the book which is nourishment for all Gaudiya Vaishnavas. And so it's only the Bhagavatam which is so prominent. And he comments also in the Vallabha Sampradaya, in the Vishnu Swami line. It's also prominent. But he says it's really only in these two schools of Vaishnava philosophy where the Bhagavatam is given so much special attention. And it's up to us to understand how important this is.
Can you work it up with those questions?
Okay, let me see. Let's look at Purushottam's question. Where is this particular interpretation of these 4 stages available, please? In the 11th canto, where these are mentioned, it's not explained like this. I can, if you have a copy of our article from the lips, do you have that? Okay, you can look in there. It's explained a lot more. I wanted to ask regarding this point in regard to establishing Siddhanta's Bhagavad Gita being part of the Prajna tribe, which holds such an important role for any interphilosophical discussion. Hey, what is that Prajna tribe? What is it? That's Bhagavad Gita, Vedanta Sutra, and the Upanishads, isn't it?
Upanishads, yeah.
Those 3 things. And if you write commentaries on that, you're considered to be a real acharya. And going back to my friend Borkeshava, hearing from him, at one point I thought, yes, this is so important, Vedanta Sutra and Upanishads is so important. And I started to dive into it. But I just like a young boy goes to go swimming, and first you stick your toe in the water to see what the temperature is like. I stuck my toe in the water and said, no.
Too cold.
I'm not interested in this, partly because I just didn't see how it was relevant.
Now, I was especially thinking in that regard of Maharaj's mentioning it in the connection with our original acharyas, who more or less their mission was to establish the sampradaya. Actually, that's what they got from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and in such a in that regard, how could they really avoid using Bhagavad Gita as the prastantrayi praman, because that's practically the only thing that is accepted in that environment.
Exactly. And so it becomes confusing for the but Baladi Vidyabhushan wrote a commentary, but Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur quotes it in his Bhagavatam purport. Why? Of course they quoted it. It's a very important literature. But Bhagavatam is everything. Now let me share with you something that we printed recently. This is from Bhakti Vikas Maharaj's book on Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Did you want to make some comment, Kun?
Yeah, on Bhagavad Gita. Is that okay?
Yeah, I'm about to read something from Bhaktisiddhanta about that. We cover the same
I
thing.
really like this discussion. I feel, for me personally, it's very important that why the acharyas wrote commentaries on it, if this is not our focus, not the focus of our sampradaya. And well, 2 comments. One of them is that Srila Prabhupada, Lakshmi Muni Mataji used to call this the Prabhupada ladder. That Bhagavad Gita says something and Prabhupada just jumps to bhakti from it. Like Krishna is trying to explain to you how you should do karma or jnana yoga, and Prabhupada just says, and therefore we should just chant Hare Krishna and and Prabhupada does this a lot in the purports if you look at it. And that kind of, for me, it kind of explains why Bhagavad Gita is important for us, but it's Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita which is important for us.
Let me throw in a little comment at this point. There's a wonderful book I don't remember the title of it, by Shivaram Maharaj, about Bhagavad Gita, about understanding Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita. And he wrote this book because there were some academic scholars who were criticizing Prabhupada's Gita, where Krishna says, Yogi Namapi Sarvesham Shadavan Bhajate Yomam, Shadavan Bhajate Yomam, that with faith one should worship me. Prabhupada says that this verse shows that bhakti is supreme to everything. And they protested that because it doesn't say that in the Sanskrit. But what what Shivaram Maharaj did is he went to the commentaries of our acharyas, and he said that this was not just something Prabhupada made up himself, but this is coming from Jiva Goswami, Vishwanath, and Baladi Vidyabhushan, and others, as Lila Purushottam was, what's called Bhaktivedanta Purports. It's a great book, highly recommended. Let me go on with this quote from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. You want to go ahead.
And then the other comment that I wanted to make is that when I spoke with some devotees who really studied Prabhupada's books, what I marked was that their vision of Bhagavad Gita is very different from a Bhakti Shastri general ISKCON vision. I talked to Mother Narayani, and she was, and I'm just trying to remember that verse, all of you, Sadatam Kirtan. No, not that verse. I don't remember now the verse, but I can put it into the chat later. Where something, the word Daivi is there. It's not Daivi Yesha Gunamai. But the whole point was
13.
Sorry?
9:13.
Yes.
That the Mahatmas are sheltered in Prakriti Ashritam, yeah.
And she just directly speaks about this as taking shelter of Shrimati Radharani. It's clear. And then I speak with Mother Shrimati, and she likes the quote Srila Prabhupada from Adilila chapter, I think it may be chapter 1 or 2 even, where Srila Prabhupada in one of the purports to Adilila explains how Bhagavad Gita was spoken directly by Govindaji specifically. He's giving Abhideya, and this is not Dvaraka.
Krishna.
This is not Dwarkadish Krishna. This is Govinda, and he is personally coming to teach us. And so it kind of gives you a different perspective on the same verses of Bhagavad Gita that we usually hear. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, understand. I want to share this thing from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. This is from Bhakti Vikas Maharaj's book. Let's see here. Srimad Bhagavatam propagates the impartial, absolute truth. It is a most desirable object for non-envious devotees. Srimad Bhagavad Gita is curriculum for the infant class, whereas Srimad Bhagavatam is for postgraduates. To qualify for the postgraduate course, those who know nothing about spiritual life use Bhagavad Gita as the entrance exam. To qualify for the postgraduate course, those who know nothing about spiritual life use Bhagavad Gita as the entrance exam. Persons desiring to attain a master's or doctorate degree in spiritual subject matter are required to study further. Nonetheless, objective devotees do not discriminate between Srimad Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. The variety of adjectives and grammatical explanations found in this world become beautiful at the lotus feet of Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam expounds the constitutional duty of the spirit soul and is directly an avatar of Bhagavan. No one can shake Srimad Bhagavatam even a hair's breadth from its unique position. Srimad Bhagavad Gita is recommended for the infant class in the spiritual school, as well as for new students who desire to enter the spiritual kingdom. Those who have become qualified by studying Bhagavad Gita and wish to attain higher spiritual knowledge can gain immense profit by properly hearing and studying Srimad Bhagavatam under the Mahabhagavata. Srimad Bhagavatam is directly the avatar of the absolute truth, not to be measured by our blunt material senses, Whatever is rare and confidential is well protected. Srimad Bhagavatam does not reveal himself to godless people. If all the books in the universe were burned to ashes, there would be no loss if only one scripture remained, Srimad Bhagavatam. If millions of centers of education disappear, there is no loss if teaching and learning the Bhagavatam continues. This is
This is Bhaktisiddhanta from quoting from
Bhakti Disscussion. I don't know if he gives a reference exactly where, but it's in Bhaktisiddhanta by Bhav. My Guru Maharaj used to quote this quite often. It's a very, very important point. Such a very, very ecstatic thing. So many different things Maharaj was speaking about. I wanted to go on about Arthayam Brahmasutranam Bharatartha Nirnaya, how he's quoting Garuda Purana, and how Garuda Purana, which is also part of the Mangala Charana, and the Guru Maharaj used to recite, how Garuda Purana is describing that Arthayam Brahmasutranam, that the meaning of the Brahma Sutra, the Vedanta Sutra, is in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Bharatartha Nirnaya, the essence of the Mahabharata is there. Gayatri Basha Ruposo, it's the Gayatri Mantras is a commentary on Gayatri Mantra, Vedartha Paribrimitaha. It's a natural commentary on all Vedic literatures. And again, my Guru Maharaj quotes from Harivamsa Purana, which describes Vedi Ramayanes Chaive Purane Bharate Tata. In the Vedic literature, in the Vedas, the Ramayana, or the Puranas, Mahabharata, Adavante Chamadyecha Harisa Vatagiyate. From the beginning to the end, all that is really described is Krishna. But it's only Srimad Bhagavatam which really makes it very, very clear. And Maharaj spoke about how understanding the Bhagavatam, let's show the screen here again. Maharaj said Srimad Bhagavatam is a very complicated procedure. Understanding Srimad Bhagavatam is a very complicated thing. When one tries to understand it just by reading it, he may very well fail to understand the inner meaning or the intention of the book, or the intention of the author. And then Maharaj spoke something about Krishna's form as Srimad Bhagavatam. And there's a bunch of verses I compiled in this regard, where Vrindavan Das Thakur says, Mahachincha Bhagavata Sarva Shastri Gai, that this Srimad Bhagavatam is Maha Achincha. It's completely you can't understand it. Someone who says Bhagavata Bhujihina Jara Achigyan, we pasted this in the chat the other day. Someone who says, I understand the Bhagavatam, they don't understand the Bhagavatam. Because Krishna Tuya Bhagavata Vibhusai Vishwa, the Bhagavatam is a manifestation of Krishna. So now let's go back to Maharaj a minute here. Maharaj speaks about how there's 3 types of language in the Srimad Bhagavatam. It was so good.
Wow.
Very, very important thing. And how the Bhagavatam is written in Samar Basha. And we see this in the 7th chapter of the first canto, when the Samadhi of Vyasadeva is being explained. In the same way, Valmiki Muni, he saw the Ramayana before the Ramayana actually existed in his Samadhi Basha. So he speaks about 3 different languages in the Bhagavatam. And let's just look at these 3, and then I'll go ahead and stop, and maybe some other devotees have some comments or discussion. The first is Samadhi Basha. And the Samadhi Basha, as Maharaj put it, you go into trance. And in that trance, you understand something, and you can understand the person who's in trance. Actually, I want to tell a story about this. And the second is Lokik Basha. And some parts of the Bhagavatam are written, and that Lokik means a common language. Another is Anya Basha. Anya Basha means some other language is there. So you really need to understand what's going on. For example, a very difficult book to understand, practically impossible to translate. It's like a life study, is the Gopal Champa of Jiva Goswami, because he's used a lot of Anya Basha. He'll use a phrase which is from the Upanishads. And it's kind of like a doorway, or a sign pointing to the door. But if you're not familiar with the Upanishads, then you miss the sign and you don't go to the door and you don't see what's on the other side of the door, because the sign indicates something. That phrase indicates something. To give you an example, which is not so perfect, in Bengali, Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur uses this phrase, what is it? Who's the personality who tried to imitate Krishna? Yeah. What is it? Pondraka? Can't remember the phrase in Bengali. Srigala Vasudev. That's what it is. Srigala Vasudev. Srigala Vasudev. Srigala means a jackal. The jackal Vasudev. So if you don't understand the Bhagavatam, then that's a little signpost. That's Anya Basha. That's a statement, Srigala Vasudev, which means literally the jackal Vasudev. But he's not, but somebody who doesn't understand, they may say, oh, he's saying that Vasudev became a jackal. Krishna became a jackal. He was the jackal incarnation, Srigala Vasudev, the jackal incarnation. But it's referring to Pondraka, and how Pondraka is just like this nonsense personality. So the Bhagavatam is spoken in Samadhi Basha. And to understand the Bhagavatam, to speak the Bhagavatam properly, you have to be in trance. And the proper listener of the Bhagavatam is also in trance. Now, there's a wonderful example of this, and that's what we would call Bhagavat Parshada Deha Prapta, or someone who has achieved, they're an Uttama Adhikari who's achieved, that they've received the body of their spiritual body. And this comes at the end of chapter 2 of Karnananda, where Yadunandan Das, he speaks this, and he speaks in the beginning of this book. This subject matter Maharaj is saying is a very, very important thing to understand any Gaudiya literature, the principle of Samadhi Basha. And we often speak about our biographies of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and how is it that Vrindavan Das Thakur says that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was a Vaishnava before Mahaprabhu met him, but Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says he was Mayavadi. We get a big headache. How do we understand all that? They were writing in Samadhi Basha, and in their Samadhi, according to their Sthayi Bhav, they were seeing Mahaprabhu's pastimes in a particular way. And all of our acharyas wrote in that way, and that's why they're acharyas. They didn't write because they were a great newspaper reporter, and they were really expert in collecting information, and that's not their qualification. The qualification is Samadhi Basha. And there's a wonderful story of how Srinivasacharya was once staying in Banabishnapur with his two wives, with his disciples' home, Raja Birhambir. And one day Srinivas entered into this Samadhi consciousness. And for 2 days, he was unconscious. And they couldn't see any life in him. They couldn't understand if he was living or if he was dead. So at that time, the devotees, they didn't know, is he still, the wives, they started crying. He hasn't eaten anything in 2 days. Krishna Kund starts crying, if I hadn't eaten anything in 2 hours. The wives start crying, 2 days, he hasn't eaten, is he still alive? And they thought at that time of Ramachandra Kaviraj. Ramachandra Kaviraj is in Kuturi Gram, which is a long ways from Vishnupur. But as soon as they thought of him, he could understand, and he came there. And by the time he entered there, by the time Ramachandra arrived, they didn't know. Maybe Srinivasacharya left his body, he's entered in the Nitya Leela. But Ramachandra Kaviraj, Yadunandan Das in his book Karnananda says that Ramachandra Kaviraj is the only one who was one in the soul with his Gurudev, just different only in the body. So he was always aware of what was going on in his Gurudev's mind. Srinivasacharya, he once said, Mora Ghani Jailaibe Ramachandra Mata. that amongst all my associates, Moragana, Jailaibi Ramachandra, only Ramachandra understands me, my mata. Ramachandra Narottama Noyana Yugala. And Srinivasi said that I have two eyes. One eye is Ramachandra Kaviraj, and the other eye is Narottam Das Thakur. They can understand me. So Ramachandra Kaviraj, he understood intuitively that something's happening and I need to go. My Gurudev is calling me. My Gurudev wants me. The devotees want me. And so before anyone could send any invitation, anything, he'd already left Vishnupur. And he arrived there, and Maharaj Bihambir and the wives of Srinivasacharya, they were all freaking out. And he told them, don't worry, Gurudev's going to return soon. Just let me check out and see. Let me go and just find out where he is. And then Ramachandra Kaviraj sat down next to Srinivasacharya and started chanting. And he went into samadhi. And then he had this amazing vision in samadhi. He realized his Swarup, his Karuna Manjari. And he saw his Gurudev as Mani Manjari. And he saw in his vision all the gopis and his Gurudev as Mani Manjari were looking for Radharani's Beshara, her nose ring. And at a certain point, Mani Manjari, who's Srinivasacharya, the guru of Ramachandra's Karuna Manjari, that Mani Manjari found the nose ring underneath a lotus leaf and handed it to his guru. And his guru, it was Mani Manjari who found that thing. Karuna Manjari who found it. And that's Ramachandra Kaviraj. And then Mani Manjari, Srinivasacharya, gave it to his guru, who's Guna Manjari, Gopal Bhatta Goswami. Gopal Bhatta Goswami, Guna Manjari, gave it to Rupa Manjari, who's Rupa Goswami, and Rupa Manjari gave it to Srimati Radharani. So that's samadhi. And that's the proper understanding of things. This is our tradition in Gaudiya Vaishnavism. It's not very popular sometimes. We would prefer that everybody can understand Srimad Bhagavatam. And why are you speaking in such a way like this? But this is our Gaudiya tradition. We don't compromise with anything else. My Guru Maharaj would not compromise. He used to say, unless you realize the Swarup of your Guru, you've only been cheated. It's like a bomb dropping on our heads. So I want to stop there. We've got a few minutes. If we finish in an hour and a half, we'll just see how the discussion goes. Natalia, it looks like you're off the bus now. Yeah. So maybe Natalia.
Yes.
Natalia is supposed to be in charge of everything. I just kind of hijacked things away from her. She's going to be angry with me, so I'm going to put Natalia back in charge, and she can. We can have some discussion of what we want. Natalia, this is your game.
Thank you very much, Madhavanand Prabhu, for such presentation brought with very important connections. Okay, I don't know. Maybe just devotees could now comment something.
We already had a bunch of comments before too, so we don't have to. But whatever you maybe there's something else from the lecture, that really struck someone else. There's so many things. I didn't finish the whole lecture. I just read through part of it, and I just certain things struck me in the comments.
I was thinking about this concept that we are not enjoying Bhagavatam, but we take shelter of Bhagavatam, so Krishna as Bhagavatam could enjoy us, being sincere and trying to know more about him and how. And I'm just also. I remember when I was some years ago, I was coming to Bhagavatam classes in temple every day almost, and I was really like open, and I got many some instructions from there were many different speakers. I really did not differentiate between them, but I was just open to the message, and I was trying to apply it during the day, and it was somehow this feeling that I don't know what is going to be during my day. I'm just open to lesson which is given by Bhagavatam, and I will try to do something. But after that, devotees said, "Oh, it is only your mind. There's nothing, nothing to do with real Bhagavatam." And so just yes, you really need to find guru and follow instructions of living person. And but also now, as I'm studying also Indian music, and now I'm listening to some interviews of one singer, Kishore Amankar is, and she is known as with some about because of her. It is called like a divine connection, and she was listening only to her mother and only to herself, like and she was trying to find the right tune, the right mood, and to be connected with Krishna through her singing. And so I don't know, there is some, so I don't know, sometimes it is, there is connection between us and Krishna direct, and sometimes guru is needed, and all. So somehow where is the balance, where is the harmony, something like that. This is what I am trying to meditate on.
You want to answer that? It's kind of like, can I jump in just for a minute?
Yes.
I had such a hard time to digest basically Raghavatma Chandika's comments on whom Krishna can hear. Of course, Srila Prabhupada very clearly says already when he explains Bhagavad Gita that how Krishna can only hear someone who is one who is completely sold out to him, one who is completely surrendered to him. That person Krishna will hear. But in Raghavatma Chandika, there is this description about how Krishna can really only, Krishna, not that he can't hear anyone else, but he really only hears his Ragat, his
Gopis.
His Ragatmika and Raganuga Bhaktas. He doesn't hear someone who is not on that stage, and everybody else he hears, but he hears through Gurudev.
Yeah, and that's the explanation. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's comments that the disciple is a separate constituent of Guru, and the disciple on his own can't perform bhakti, but it's only in connection with Guru that he can do that. So Krishna, again, it's a subtle topic.
And we don't emphasize it for neophytes.
Yeah, you can emphasize one side or the other side, and people start arguing about it, but both sides are correct. And Krishna definitely hears the hearts of the devotees, but how does he hear the hearts of the devotees? It's such an amazing thing. It's one of the most important things my Guru Maharaj said, that when someone chants Hare Krishna and cries, then Krishna manifests as Guru. And that's how Krishna really begins to hear from us.
And Fakir Mohammed was explaining, and he was quoting a particular verse from the Bhagavatam, that when someone actually turns to Krishna for the first time, then Paramatma becomes Vasudeva, and specifically Vasudeva, because that means Sattva Guna, that means that, and then Paramatma becomes active, and he's not Upadashta Anumanta anymore. Then he's directing, and then this is the Checha goal that we are talking about. Because until then, it's not Chechagura. Until then, it's Paramatma.
We've had a lot of talking. What about Jaguar?
Yeah, what about Jaguar? He's just putting his hand up and it must be hurting already.
Hare Krishna. I can lower the hand now. I was really happy for that you started speaking about these 4 types of sound. I remember us going through that and when you reprinted Pariprashna some years ago. And I've been thinking a lot about that lately. And so I also remember you saying that you might be able to, like, it's kind of according to the receptivity of the hearer, you can achieve different levels of sound. Is that correct?
Yeah, certainly.
And I was just thinking, like, I have one friend I've been spending a lot of time with, and he's sheltered by Shiva Ram Maharaj, and he said that Shiva Ram Maharaj told him, you know, you should primarily associate with me through my books, because my books, when I write my books, I'm more me than I am otherwise. You know, like, he has institutional responsibilities, and a lot of the time, you know, you don't see him as he is, or even maybe hear from him as, you know, like speaking from his heart very often. And I was also thinking about Srila Prabhupada said that, you know, his purports are his ecstasies, and just kind of, and I was also thinking about Aindraprabhu's book, like Aindraprabhu's book is very much like his heart on paper. And I think you addressed this before, but it's been some time. Devotees might feel, I myself might personally feel like, you know, sad, because I'm reading some books of the Acharyas, and it's like, in one sense, I feel like I'm associating with Rupa Goswami, I'm associating with Raghunath Das Goswami, and because they're putting their heart on paper for us. So when someone says that you're not, if it's not from the lips, and it's not real, then it's you know, it's sad.
Problem is when you have neophytes on both sides. Usually when you have fights in Vaishnav, amongst the Vaishnavas, it's because of neophytes on both sides. And in this case, I can see some neophyte mentality on both sides. On one side, sometimes devotees just want to say, well, Prabhu, I just read the book and that's all that I have to do. And I can directly connect with Krishna. But that's not the same as Samar Basha. It's not the same as being, having a samadhi language, being in samadhi just by reading the book. And on the other hand, you have some people who've heard a little something from my Guru Maharaj or someone, and they want to take a baseball bat and hit you on the head and say, no, you have to, you have to be a self-realized person. You have to hear from a self-realized person, otherwise it doesn't make any difference. But that also is not satisfying, because I think all of us have had the experience of sitting down and reading Srimad Bhagavatam and feeling so inspired. And it's a real experience. I'm experiencing something. It's helping me become detached from material life. It's helping me to focus my mind. Is some real thing. When you read Ayendra Prabhu's book, you're getting some inspiration. You're connecting with his thoughts. And the same thing with Shiva Ram Maharaj's book and whatever. So again, it's a subtle subject. And if somebody wants to just champion one side of it without fully understanding both sides, then they're just going to hurt somebody. It's not right. Of course we should read the books. Of course Prabhupada wanted his books there for everybody. And of course there's benefit there. And of course Shiva Ram Maharaj is present in his books. But at the same time, there's a book, The Agony and the Ecstasy, which I read years ago about Michelangelo. You're not going to understand Michelangelo just by reading The Agony and the Ecstasy. And similarly, just by reading Srimad Bhagavatam, there's different levels. And therefore, we told this story about Ramachandra Kaviraj and Srinivasacharya. That's the level that my Guru Maharaj is talking about, that we want to come to that level. And in one sense, he's saying, if you don't come to that level, you haven't gotten anything. Because in one sense, that's where it really begins. But that's on a very, very high level. But at the same time, he also told devotees to distribute Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. And he had devotees coming, and he would give classes in schools and things in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam to people who were very, very new, because they were getting some other benefit. So if we only take one statement out of context and champion that one statement and think this is the entire thing, that you have to hear from the lips, and unless you're hearing from the lips, it's just nonsense. You're only understanding part of it. It's Artika Kyuti Nyaya, and maybe because you're a fanatic for your guru, you're waving the flag like that. But of course, reading Ayendra Prabhu's book or Shivaram Maharaj's book, you're getting something. But my Guru Maharaj is saying, well, let's realize the Sarup of Ayendra Prabhu or Shivaram Maharaj. And that's the real communication with them. And Maharaj is speaking, some other thing, maybe to maintain his yatra here in Hungary. He's stressing that you read the book and you associate with me. And of course, that's a fact. But it doesn't negate what my Guru Maharaj is saying. Both of them are correct. And there's a certain context, just like we were just speaking about Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. I've seen some fanatics go to some gurus who speak something a little higher, and they say, oh, Bhagavad Gita is for neophytes. And I'm not interested in Bhagavad Gita. Like all of a sudden you're a Paramahamsa or something. But that's nonsense. Bhagavad Gita has a position, but we need to understand the relative position of Bhagavad Gita in context of Srimad Bhagavatam. Unless we see the whole picture, if we just take one aspect of it and champion that, we may end up hurting some people. Is that helpful?
Yeah, that's very helpful, Guru. And I'm happy to hear that too. I was thinking that, like, sometimes someone might understand Prabhupada on a deeper level than maybe some of his disciples would, even though they had heard from the lips, even if they weren't his direct disciple like that. And one devotee, I really like what you said, that Gurudev was saying, let's understand the sarup of that person. That's to really know the person. This devotee, he showed Dalal Prabhu I've been spending time with, he said something really beautiful the other day. He likes to say a lot. He said, I think that Prabhupada is the most misunderstood person in ISKCON.
It's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I told
Because
you'd like Jai Gaur. You guys will have a good time together.
yeah, because to know him really means to know who he is on the absolute platform. And so I really appreciate that comment.
Yeah. Leela Purushottam was commenting something. It's obvious thing. I mean, how can you understand even some personality like Einstein or Da Vinci or someone just by reading a book, even though they read? Of course, you'll understand something, of course, but it doesn't mean you're going to know him as well as his wife. And even the wife doesn't understand him all the way. We want to understand someone's sarup. Leela Purushottam, you had something else also? I thought you had your hands up at one point.
Well, I'm very happy to being triggered by Jai Gaura's thoughts, because he really made me a favor to use Ayendra Prabhu and the book. Because my knowing Ayendra Prabhu is actually like the book is really like just one little part of it. And I'm just to put it into the words what I really meant with that comment. I'm quite sure that if you ask 10 devotees what's their feeling about Ayendra Prabhu after reading the book, most probably you would get picture of some very, I know how to, I don't want to spoil it, actually, the point. Like
institutional angst, maybe.
Someone hitting the table and being so strong about his points, and And definitely that was a strong part of Indra Prabhu's personality. But telling my personal experiences, I was many times hugged by Indra Prabhu. I was crying with Indra Prabhu. I was witnessing him being emotionally moved about Krishna Katha, and this creates so much bigger variety to his personality than just knowing him through the book through which he wanted to achieve some purpose, and that purpose was to wake up guys, if I use that phrase. So in that sense, what I wanted to arrive at is that we can't really rely on these just available fractions of those personalities and rely that we know the personality and in that sense.
Even it's a kind of pride. I think I've read the book. I memorized everything. I know him really well. And even somebody may read the book and decide that they don't like him. You know, well, because I read this and that in the book, and he's a troublemaker. He's this or that. But they've only, as you said, they've only understood one aspect, and we all feel frustrated like that. I had this vision when you were talking that you should invite Jai Gaur to come to Czech and travel and give classes in different temples, the two of you together.
I believe it's really
From all the temples in Europe.
Puri. I wouldn't dare to spoil that excitement for him.
Did you all look through the questions that Natasha put into our chat?
Yeah, they were scary to me.
I feel the same way. And although I feel that a lot of nice things happened today, and I mean, I have more like wonderful points from this class, so many actually, that I don't even want to, like, I don't want to take time. If somebody's interested, they can contact me. But I just feel that we should also discuss those questions. I'm not sure in what form and how we will manage to keep
Siddha Hari Prabhu makes a comment. He just said he could not connect the questions to the class that we heard. It seems like they were for some other class. I think
That's what I wrote to WhatsApp actually.
Natasha, you have a comment on that? Is that for the Russian class? Because I didn't listen to the Russian class. Or is it for this class?
I mean, of course, it was for the Russian class.
Oh, it's an of course. Okay. Okay. So did you take part in the coordinators meeting where these questions?
No, it will be next week.
It will be next week. Okay.
We did not start it yet. We just will. Our first discussion will be next Tuesday.
I just want to make a real quick confession, since the guys put me on the chair and asked me to be the MC or the speaker of the things. I didn't have time today to do like anything. I had about 20 minutes, and in 20 minutes I read through some things from Maharaj and collected a few things together. This would be about this would be about the worst that I can do, just to promise you. But I still think it was useful. We got together and had some discussions, and there's a few different thoughts that I had around Maharaj's things. It's Siddha Hari Prabhu. Wow, look at that. I can transcribe the Russian class and translate it if you like. Just see, Siddha Hari also knows Russian. He talks to cows too, isn't it, Jaguar? Man, I'm really, really impressed.
Okay.
Transcription's ready. It's 19 pages. Siddha Hari Prabhu, you want to make some comment? Come on. We got to see your smiling face. Otherwise,
Bapu, I don't have my tilak on, and I feel like showing my. I don't feel like showing my crematorium face, as we hear from
It's
CC.
like you're wearing a Hawaii shirt. No, it's not. It's a plaid shirt. Okay. It's not so.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for speaking today. And I also love from Maharaj this point that how Bhagavatam is spoken by Krishna each time, although the spiritual message is a Y media, and that's how you began your class today by showing that quote. And that was so much fresh to see that when we are listening in trance or in samadhi from a speaker who's in samadhi, then really we are listening from Krishna, Bhagavatam, and that's the goal. Through all these exchanges, we're trying to listen to Krishna. And that's not limited by time, place, of circumstance. Of course, it's much more easier if you have a living guru versus a guru who's left the body and you're trying to connect to the upperkata realm. So I really appreciate your katha today. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm really that transcribing, that was awesome. The only
Oh,
thing that's really annoying about it is the sentences never stop. It's like
it's not. I can't change anything, Bruce. It's like
it'll go for 20 pages with one sentence.
But I think it's kind of nice because as you read it, you can kind of think it through and make it.
Oh yeah, it was super
Yeah.
useful. Jai Gore wrote a question. I want to know these great personalities, but I missed out on many facets of their character. What can I do now? Well, when Bhaktivinoda says he reasons ill that Vaishnavas die when they're living still and sound, what does that mean? What does it mean? Does that mean that you play a record of Ayendra Prabhu and you're just associating with him? I don't think it's just the same. What does that sound mean? I would say that we associate with Ayendra when you do kirtan, which is inspired by Ayendra, and he's present there and he's smiling at that, not that he's stuck inside that you captured him alive inside that little tape recorder or whatever. Now he has to dance whenever you want. So, but meaning when we do service, when we serve those personalities, and even they may be gone, they may not be personally present. I have to tell you, doing this last Bindu magazine, I felt so happy because I was just able to meditate on the Vaishnavas, the devotees, and you get blessings. You get blessings from Bhaktivinoda Thakur if you quote him and you try to please him and propagate what he's done. And the same thing with Srila Prabhupada and all these personalities. So that's why we want to do kirtan. Tate Krishna Bhaji Kode Guru Du Sevan. That Krishna Bhajan is our service to the acharyas. All right, so Siddha Hari Prabhu Ki Jai.
So there is a Russian transcription. Maybe Natasha, would you put the Russian transcription into our chat? And then Siddha Hari Prabhu can do his magic. And then we can also catch up with that class.
I have a question of Siddha Hari Prabhu. When you do those things, are you doing it in Samar Basha? How does this work? I'm really impressed.
No, probably it's another category that Maharaj is speaking about. You can only understand when you are in Samadhi Basha.
That's something.
And wait. But if you are not, but the person have this special quality that he can make you have an experience, then you can understand it even though you don't have that adhikar.
So we don't have the adhikar, but Siddha Hari Prabhu does.
Yes.
That's why you're the most important person in the group, Prabhu.
I love this.
Thank you, Boo. Thank you so much. Appreciation. Boo, I have a technical question here for Mother Natasha or Mother Krishna Kun for regarding this next sessions. Because if you're going to follow the English classes, then the questions don't make any sense. And if you're going to follow Russian classes, then we need the Russian transcript so we can translate it. Otherwise, I'm not really sure. Like, what are we going to follow? Are we going to follow the English classes or the Russian classes? Because we can't do both. I don't have time to do, 2 classes on the same topic every week recorded, and then come here. It'll be too much for me.
If I can say for myself, I'm unlike Madhavananda Prabhu, more dependent on sound version than having time to read really. So for me, the only hope is the English lectures.
I also agree personally too. The English I can because I'll tell you something with the Russian translation. Some funny things are going to happen when you do that. I know those machines.
And I personally don't see it as a until the answering those questions is compulsory for us, which I don't understand it like that. It's
You're not
not.
going to get a grade, man. What kind of grade are you going to get when you get them? They give you the test. Not going to graduate.
So in that sense, I'm not really like bothered so much that it just doesn't fit perfectly like the questions too. I have a bigger value in what we received today, like really have a summary and then discussion on important points of the class, and then hoping that something sticks in our hearts and will do some transformation.
Krishna Kun.
I am bothered that I didn't, because I felt like, oh my God. And you know, the questions for the neophyte devotees. Okay, so I understand my position. That's no problem. That just keeps me humble. But I would like to know the answers. So maybe in that case, I don't know. Natasha, you will have a discussion and you will.
But you know, Krishna Kun, if you say like that, then where does your dissatisfaction stop? You're also going to be dissatisfied because you didn't listen to the Russian class. And you have to really listen to it. To get the whole thing, you have to listen to the Russian class. And to get the whole thing, you just got to move to Govardhan and be with Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj personally.
Not such a bad idea.
That's not such a bad idea.
Okay. I surrender unless Natasha has some other comment. Maybe we can continue.
Natasha
this.
just dropped out, it looks like.
Maybe we can continue this in the WhatsApp chat.
No, she's here.
We should go. We have to go take the sign. It's very important. And we're very happy here. Anybody's curious, Naranjan Maharaj came today. And we got some kind of clarity how I can go to Ukraine. So it looks like it'll be happening.
Kind of interesting. We will go to Ukraine. I got a phone call like 2 minutes before Naranjan Maharaj arrived here from the FRO here, from the Alliance Police. So we can go to Ukraine, but he cannot come back. But they say that by next week, probably, they can't guarantee, but probably his residence permit will come. And if somebody brings it to the border, then we can come in.
Oh, Krishna.
Right now, this is the plan.
It's doable.
Yeah, and about the visa, Siddhari Prabhu, I would also like to know, how is it with your Indian visa?
Nothing yet. I'm getting a little nervous because others got it after two.
We applied and we got a automated message saying, thank you for applying.
Oh.
But one of the questions in the Indian e-visa was previous visa details, and we had to give. And one of the answers also contained our address in Puri and Bhakta Rupa as the person to connect with, because we had to give that address in another place already anyway.
So I wanted to ask Siddhari Prabhu, if we have no place to go and they're kicking us out of Hungary and we can't go back to India, is there a place in the Goshala there in Ypsilanti?
Actually, that's a serious question.
So we would love to have you forever. I'm sure Jaigor, we maybe will bring back Jaigor to Michigan just because if you come here.
He doesn't have a place to stay. That he have to stay.
Brooklyn Temple's pretty big. So
anyway, we may have to figure something out.
We actually need to leave the flat in which we are. So we've been there for years. So.
Just don't tell Anapayani Radha about this. What do you do?
Too late. How about Arizona? In the chat.
Yeah, I saw the chat.
Okay, I think we should finish.
I think we should finish now. But Anapayani, we are trying very hard to go. We want to be there, Govardhan, for that wedding. We really, really want to be there. Seriously. And if not, we'll connect somehow. We'll be with you. If nothing else, I'll send a recorded message and telling Pranahari what a nonsense you are and what he has to watch out for in marriage and stuff and like that.
Hare Krishna. We don't want to speak about this yet. Right now, we are doing everything we can to
get
there.
We're doing everything. And it looks, we're going to come. I think it's going to happen. Anyway, okay. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Srila Bhakti Vigyan Goswami Maharaj ki, Go Premanandi Hari Hari Bo, Vanchakalpa Durubhis Chakra, Sindhu Deva Chapta Titanam, Pavani Vaishnavi, the Kodi Vaishnavi.